That's really interesting because you speak to Labor and Liberal people inside and outside of the Parliament. They're really preoccupied with what the RBA is going to do, and they're talking like their political fortunes really hinge on this decision. And I get what you're saying. It's not just this one decision. That doesn't reverse the 12 or 13 rate rises we saw in a row. But is it kind of a framer that, that is a sign that things are starting to get better, and who do they credit that for?
Yeah. Look, I think there's actually a little bit of a danger here if the government, after one interest rate cut, goes out and tries to say, things are better, lives are better, because people's experience around the dinner tables right now is not of that, and one interest rate cut will not restore that, because it's a whole variety of things. Yes, interest rates are, of course, at the heart of it, but you've got energy bills, you've got, school bills, you've got, kids going back, and the books and the clothes and all the rest of it, and then you've got literally week in, week out grocery bills that are going up. People still talk to us in focus groups. Went down to the supermarket yesterday, spent $100. I looked in my basket, not a trolley, my basket, spent $100, and I just can't believe how little I get for my money. So, yeah, I honestly think if they overplay an interest rate cut, it could actually turn into a negative, because it would sort of speak to this sort of out of touch kind of aspect of it.
Yeah, you and I, Simon, have talked many, many times consistently about these measures, whether it's a rebate or a subsidy. These things are just a drop in the ocean. They're not really getting or retaining votes for the Labor Party, but they are big spending measures. So I wonder whether, and we see a little hint of it, I don't want to call them Trump tactics, because they're not really, but I think Donald Trump has kind of given the other side, the coalition, a bit of confidence to do what he has done, and been a little bit more bold and decisive in terms of decision making. And I see that a little bit with Peter Dutton already, saying, look, we're going to run the ruler over things. Yeah, there'll be cuts, but we're not going to tell you what they are yet. That has always been a political risk in an Australian election campaign. But I feel like this time it might be a little bit different. It's still a risk, but he might just get away with it. The other thing is, making announcements and telling the public how much they cost or don't cost. Every election campaign I've ever been involved in is concentrated. Every journalist concentrated on the minutiae of what it costs the budget. But it looks like there is a possibility that the coalition might throw that rule book not completely out, but it may be to the side for a little while. Is there any signs that that might work?
So I think a couple of things there. The first thing I'd say is there is a bit of a growing disquiet around Trump and some of those sort of executive orders. And
is it the meanness?
The meanness, and also sort of almost like the chaotic nature of it, and the unpredictability of it. In times of pressure and uncertainty, people don't like that. Particularly Australia. I'm talking in Australia here. So we are seeing a bit of that coming up in the focus group. So I think there is a caution.
So there's that, if I could be, so is the caution between, okay, be decisive, be a little bit bigger in your thinking, but still understand that Australians don't like that chaotic meanness that we've seen in the US?
That's it. Be decisive about, and it's always sort of goes through this filter of in-groups and out-groups. Be decisive about things that benefit me. And if that comes at the cost of out-groups, then so be it. And I think, in Australia right now, the biggest out-group, that everyone talks about is sort of corporate Australia, big business in Australia. So people are happy to see politicians put the heat on them if it benefits us. And you've seen that with, as you say, with Peter Dutton's, the supermarkets talking about divestiture and these sorts of things. So I think just a word of caution there. I don't think Peter Dutton has drifted into that territory really yet.
No.
But I just say there's a word of caution around that. So then in terms of, I've forgotten the second part of your question.
The caution, the meanness, but the kind of being decisive and maybe taking a few risks and not worrying about being peppered about having to, account for every single dollar for every single announcement you make. Now, I'm not saying that's a good idea, because we've always expected our political leaders to, be cautious with taxpayer funds, but it seems like there is less caution around,
Yes.
the reporting and the political nature of matching dollar for dollar and where the budget will be in deficit or not.
Yeah, so I think this is, a really interesting point, is that the Australian electorate is becoming far more fragmented than it ever has been. And we're seeing this really strong cleavage between outer-suburban regional voters versus sort of middle, inner-suburban. There's education sort of as a part of that cleavage. And it was writ large in the Voice result. I mean, that was kind of a seismic result, not in the sense that it changed anything, but sort of in revealing that cleavage. And I think more than anything, what voters are looking for in this election in terms of policy is not the detail and not the money and all the rest of it. What they're looking for is a strong signal through policy, through material. This is what we're going to do, not just words and sort of that American style kind of verbiage, but actual policies. Who's on my side? And it's going to be a really difficult sort of line to walk for the major parties that are trying to build coalitions on both sides of that cleavage, because those outer suburban voters, what they're saying to us in a lot of these groups is particularly over the last 4 years, what we've seen is the government very much focused on the other side of that cleavage.
Yeah. And
so Labor's real challenge is to restore what really is its base on that sort of working class outer suburban side of its cleavage. But that's what people are looking for. You're right. It's not about the dollars and figures. It's about that signal of who is actually on my side.
Nice one, Simon. Great to talk to you. See you next week.